Hey guys, it's Kaz here, and today I'm doing the end of the decade tag. This was created by Kat over at Brews and Reviews, so definitely go check hers out. I'll leave it in the description, and she tagged me to do this. So basically in this tag you split the decade up into 3 sections. There are 5 questions that you answer for each, and then a couple of questions at the end discussing the whole business of the decade. So let's get into it. The first section is 2010 to 2013. Question 1 is how much did you read? So because my memory is not that great, I had a little look on Amazon and saw what books I was picking up at that time to try and figure out what these questions were, especially towards the beginning of the decade. So I have some findings. I don't think I read that much between 2010 and 2013. Bits and bobs here and there. I know I used to go to the library and get out like 10 books at a time, so I probably read quite a bit, but not as much as I do now. So in relation, not that much, but quite a bit. But mostly it's random books from the library. Question 2 is what genre did you read the most? And I definitely read sort of young YA contemporary, you know, them like tween books, because basically in that time I didn't know anything about books or what was coming out or what was popular. I mean, even the popular books from that period of time, like Hunger Games, I don't know when that came out, but let's pretend it was between 2010 and 2013. I didn't know about any of that stuff, so I used to just go to the library and then just like go to the YA section and just grab 10 really easy reading, just random tween, you know, the sort of books, that sort of thing. So I feel like that's what I read the most, even though I did read quite a bit of Darren Shan as well. Question 3 is what were your favourite books and authors? I just mentioned him, Darren Shan for sure. I pretty much only read Darren Shan for a really long time. When I was young, I read Jacqueline Wilson, and then when I got a little bit older, I just read Darren Shan. I didn't know anything about books, so I didn't know how to find any other authors, so I was just Darren Shan all the time. But I just want to point out, it was in 2012 that I picked up the absolute bargain that was A Song of Ice and Fire, right? I know I've been talking about the fact that I only read really easy YA, but I also read A Song of Ice and Fire, or at least some of the books in that period. And I'm going to put it here, because I saw it on Amazon, I was like, yes! I got the box set for $18.99 in 2012. I mean, that is the best Black Friday deal I've ever had. So I read some of them books in this period as well. Question 4 is, are there books in that period that you wish you read? Again, like I said, I don't know what books were in what period. Were the Hunger Games then? I don't know. Were other popular books then? Percy Jackson, I don't know. I don't know when stuff came out. So, I mean, I enjoyed what I read then. So we'll say no, because I like the fact that recently is when I've discovered stuff that people have known for ages. And question 5 is, do you have any regrets about your reading time at that period? No. I picked a lot of stuff up from the library because all my books are in storage, because I moved like twice in a really small amount of time, so I was just reading random stuff. I also, according to Amazon, got my Kindle in 2012, and you know what, it's kind of embarrassing. Well, not embarrassing, but just like, I should kick myself up the arse, because I got my Kindle in 2012, and then so many of the books on there that I like downloaded for free at that period, I still haven't read. So maybe that worked for the question of books I should have read in that time. All of them books that I downloaded on my Kindle and never read and still haven't read. Yes. So now I've got the same questions for 2014 to 2016. So how much did you read? Again, I feel like I read slightly less than I did in the first period, in like the first few years, 2014, 2015, but I got my Goodreads in 2016, so I felt like that's when I started to become a reader of loads of books rather than just a few books. What genre did I read the most? Well, in 2016, like I said, it's when I got Goodreads. It was also 2015 when I discovered Booktube, because this is quite ironic because I talk shit about this series all the time, but I read City of Bones in 2015, and for some reason I wanted to look it up on YouTube, and that's how I found Booktube. So in 2015 I found Booktube. So, I mean, what genre did I read? Within that time space, especially 2016, is when I sort of started becoming the person that I am today, or the reader that I am today, I guess, not just the person. So I read my first graphic novel, I found my favourite author, Andrew Smith. I started reading proper books that people know in that period, picking up all the popular YA and stuff. So I feel like that's a lot of genres. I became more of the reader that I am now. What were your favourite books and authors? Like I just mentioned, Andrew Smith I found within that time period. I also picked up my first volume of Chew within that time period, and that's my favourite comic series. So 2016 seems to be a very good year for me in terms of reading. Is there a book I wish I read in that time period? No, because that's when I started actually reading books that people knew, rather than just sticking to just Darren Shan and not knowing anything about books. But it was also the period that I just started grabbing anything because I'm like, oh my god, I've heard of this. I heard one person mention this one time. I'll grab that, grab that, grab that, grab that. I think it wasn't until the third section of the decade where I started knowing my reading taste more, and I knew that I could just say no to a book just because it's popular. I probably won't read it. But no, I don't feel like there's something that I should have read in this period. And do I have any regrets about reading this period? No, I don't. Maybe I don't necessarily regret it, but maybe I shouldn't have just picked up loads of books that people have talked about that I wasn't necessarily interested in. But I feel like that's just a commonplace when people start Booktube. They're like, oh my god, I didn't realise there were this many books exist, let me just get them all. And I feel like everybody does that. They go crazy like their first year and then they kind of calm the fuck down and learn their own tastes, and then start picking and choosing what they're going to pick up. Or in my case, start picking loads of random shit that nobody ever talks about on here anyway, because that's the sort of person I am. And then the last section, 2017 to 2019. This is the peak years. I feel like most people doing this tag, this will be the peak years. So how much did I read? I read a lot. Since I got Goodreads, apart from that first year because I started it in August, so I didn't really do a challenge then. But in 2017, 18 and 19, which are the years we're talking about here, I set my goal for 50 books every year, and I did more than 50 books. The last 2 years I've got over 100 books, so yes, I'm reading quite a bit now. What genre did I read the most? Honestly, I feel like I read the genres that I read the most are contemporary and fantasy. They're quite similar in amount. I know that last year I actually kept a tally of what sort of things I read, and it was pretty much exactly the same in both, so they're kind of completely different. But they're also what I read the most. What were your favourite books and authors? I still love Andrew Smith, not gonna lie. But I've just discovered so many different books and authors and things and love. All for the Game, I mean, come on. The Raven Cycle. There's so many series and books and authors that I love now that I can't even just list them. But there are a few in that list. Is there a book you wish you read in this time period? No, I don't think it is. I feel like my reading's pretty decent at the moment. Of course, there are some books that I really want to read that I haven't read yet, but not necessarily, oh, I wish I read them last year. It's just that I really want to read them now. So I feel like this has been a pretty consistent no throughout the whole of the decade. And then any regrets of reading during this time period? Of course not. I read loads. I found loads of new genres. I started reading mangas and comics and different types of books. Booktube, Bookstagram, no regrets. And then there are just 2 questions that kind of sum up the whole thing. So the first of those questions is, when did you find Booktube? Did it change your reading habits? Of course, I've kind of mentioned it through this. I found Booktube in 2015 and Goodreads in 2016, I think. And yeah, it's definitely changed my reading. I read a lot more than I used to. I read more widely than I used to, but I'm not sure if that's a Booktube thing. It's kind of a Booktube thing, but also a me thing. Because like I mentioned earlier, I kind of read a lot of obscure shit that people don't read on Booktube, but I feel like Booktube gave me the platform to open my mind that books and authors exist, and then open it further and find stuff that people are not talking about. So it kind of does help. And then the last question is, how do you think your reading has changed over the last decade? So I feel like I'm kind of reiterating stuff, but I read a lot more, I read wider. I read more indie and self-published books because I didn't know they were kind of a thing back in the day. I definitely read different types of books more. I started reading comics and manga, and that's something that I'd never read before 2016, I think, and now I have like a whole fucking section of them. There's a lot there, so that's the thing. And yeah, I think my reading has changed quite a lot. I feel like most people doing this tag will say the same. And yes, I definitely think that Booktube, Bookstagram, all that business, Goodreads, is part of the reason why. So, big up yourself. So yeah, that was the end of the decade tag. I'm going to tag some people because you should do it. So I'll tag R. Jensen, I'll tag Dane Reads, A Beautiful Chaos of Books, Novelle Novels, Alex Black, and books and bargains. So if you want to do this tag, then do it. You've got a few weeks because then it's kind of obsolete, but you know, give it a go. Let me know down below what your thoughts are in this decade and how your reading's changed, or what you think of mine. Do you think A Song of Ice and Fire, the whole box set for $18.99 is a good ass deal? Because it is. Are you jealous? If this is the first video by me and you enjoy it, please check out some of the others, and if you continue to enjoy them, please subscribe, that'd be awesome. Anyway guys, I'll see you in a few days with another video. Bye. I'm sorry, Lily, I haven't done that. No one's done that. I have approximately 7 feet in this book.